What if your dream business is secretly a ticking time bomb? Curtis Eshghy's journey reveals the dangerous mistakes entrepreneurs make and the game-changing mindset that saved him from disaster. In this episode, Curtis takes us on a masterclass in leadership, growth, and the art of stepping back to see the big picture. He shares the tough decisions, personal evolution, and strategies that helped him create a legacy company built to last. Curtis is more than the CEO. He's a builder of dreams, both for his business and for the people within it. With over $30 million in annual revenue, Curtis has redefined what it means to grow with purpose and lead with heart. From staffing 150 installers to learning the value of balance over relentless growth, Curtis has mastered the art of scaling without losing sight of what matters most. Get ready for actionable insights and inspiring stories. Curtis doesn't just share his wins, he shares his playbook. Let's jump in and learn how to grow smarter, lead better, and dream bigger. Welcome to the Roofing Success Podcast. I'm Jim Aline, and I'm here to bring you insights from top leaders in the roofing industry to help you grow and scale your roofing business. Chicagoland's finest, Curtis Eshghy. How are you, brother?
Good. How you doing, Jim?
Good, man. Good to see you again. Good to have you back on the show. It's been a long time. The first conversation that we had was about building a strong foundation in your roofing business. You were already a roofing contractor top 100 a couple of years. It was about 2 years ago, I think, when we spoke last, when we did an episode, and had built your company to 25, 30, maybe 30 million in revenue. You haven't stopped, man.
Yeah, no, it keeps going.
It keeps on going, right? The vision is big. Let's start off with that. Let's start off about the vision. What was your vision? What was your vision in those early days? Were you in those early days? Did you have any thought that you were going to build a company with 250 employees and, did you ever think of that?
Not necessarily to that scale. I always had a vision and always had a dream of building something that, leaves a legacy and that I could kind of pass on to, family members and, close friends and my daughter. And that vision has matured, I would say. I wouldn't say it's changed. I would just say the vision has matured. And knowing where you become the asset and not the liability is something that, the past 2 years have really, helped me identify within the company, within myself, within, maturing as an adult,
Where have you become the best asset in your company?
I think that kind of by the knowledge, experience, and the ability to take a step back and watch things, you get a different perspective. So if you're playing football, for example, right, and you're an offensive lineman, the vision that you see is directly in front of you, and that's kind of what your focus is making that block or making that tackle. When you take a step back and now you're the coach, right? You're watching it from the sideline, and you get a different perspective. You start to be able to see, maybe 5 or 6 different players at one time. When you're the offensive coordinator or you're the GM and you're sitting in a skybox and you're looking down, you get to see the whole field. And I think that's kind of with the help of the people in the company, with all these people's hard work and dedication, it's given me the ability to have a different perspective. And that perspective becomes the ability to make tough decisions. And a lot of those tough decisions are to kind of save everybody. Even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's a decision you don't want to really make, and something that takes you a while to sleep on, I think that, that has been where I become the best suited asset was being able to play all of those positions and work my way up into being able to see the field as a whole. And that's something that, like I said before, I thank, everybody here in the company to allow me to mature and grow into that.
Yeah. What do you think the importance is in learning all of the positions, and how much do you have to play each position? Like, do you have to really be on the field in every position in your company to really, or do you think that like you can learn how to coach someone, right? Because coaching is different than playing a lot of times. What's your thoughts on that?
It definitely is. You also know when you have to know when to identify someone that is more skilled or more talented than you at a certain position as well. Your ego can't get in the way of what's best for the company or what's going to help our growth. Because maybe I can tell you right now, proficiency when it comes to using a software, I may not be that guy, right? I may not be the day-to-day, a million phone calls and problem solving over and over and over again. That may not be where I'm best suited. So really identifying people's strengths and keeping them focused and empowering them to elevate through whatever position it is that they are in the company. I think that, myself, not necessarily having to play every position.
Yeah.
But kind of in the growth of a company, you want to kind of start out at the bottom and kind of work your way through stuff. And then when that next guy comes and he's better than me. You know what I mean? He's better than me at closing. Let him kind of take that responsibility of teaching others how to close, right? I felt like, when I was knocking doors, 5, 6, 7 years ago, I was great at getting people to open the doors. My partner Kevin was a master at getting the closing done. So once I kind of identified that, it was an easy transition to say, hey, Kevin, I need you to teach this part, right? And I'll teach this part. And then another individual came in and they showed me, hey, maybe they're better at opening than I was. Okay, so now moving out the way to allow them to kind of, grow and whatever works, or whatever knowledge they have or what's working, let them kind of share that with the rest of us. And in that process, everyone's kind of moved up, like Kevin is the VP of the company now. And it's just the constant, being able to take, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back kind of analogy is you get out there, you try things out, either they work or they don't. But either way, you kind of have to take that step back, realign, and then actually get out there.
That different viewpoint is really important. I've heard it. I listened to an interview. There's a big marketing guy. His name is Alex Hermosi, and then Dave Ramsey, the finance guy.
Yeah.
Alex was interviewing Dave, and Dave was talking about his entrepreneurial journey and how, like, entrepreneurship, if entrepreneurship is a maze, entrepreneurs, small business owners, man, we don't care where the maze goes. Like, we'll go under a wall, over a wall, or through a wall if we need to. Right? The strategy of how to get through the maze isn't what we're concerned about. We're concerned about getting out of the other side. Right.
Exactly.
And he said that there was a phase in a place in his business that his business had gotten to a certain level where he started having to hire a lot of people that were smarter than him. The MBAs, he called them, right? Like the finance guys and the real strategic operations guys. And he said he was like, what he learned from them is that they look down at the maze and they go, all right, take 3 steps and then make a left. Take 4 steps and make a right. And he said those people taught him how to get that viewpoint like you're talking about, to get up in the stand above the stands and watch the game get played and kind of be more strategic in what you're trying to do. but he also had to teach them that we're getting to the other side no matter what.
Definitely.
Right. And there's this balance there, right? There's this balance. And I'm sure you've had to find some balance in that, right? What were some of those situations that you've run into?
We were discussing before, starting that labor force. It was a great learning lesson.
Let's explain that for a second. Explain what you did.
So we were mostly subcontracting all of our work out to other roofing companies, labor force type situations. We actually staffed and hired about 150 installers. We bought
say that again.
staffed and hired about 150 laborers.
About 150 installers, right? Like this is what I want people to understand. Like this is I just want to highlight the enormity of the undertaking. So now go ahead. Sorry.
So there's a lot of stuff that went into that, and it was a big investment from the company. And we also purchased 4 gutter trucks and machines and staffed that side of things as well. And it was a great situation and a great learning lesson for the company and for, like I was saying before, kind of you get in there and try things out, and then you can come back and then put it together correctly. And I feel like, it's really important that when you are building something, you are building it with the right people and the right individuals who share that common, focus and goal. And things don't become such a infatuation with money and not so much what grew the company was, people's desire and love to actually grow something and be a part of something. And I feel like sometimes when things get too big or when outside people kind of get involved, their intentions may not be the same as the core values of the company. And, you go through stuff, it's like riding a bike, when you're a kid. You get on the bike, you fall off the bike, you get back on the bike, and, eventually you can still fall off the bike eventually, but, you become a more proficient, rider. You have the, foresight to make sure I stop and I look across both sides of the street so I don't get hit by a car. Sometimes we get very excited, especially the personality type I have. Usually when I get into something, I go 199% into it. And most of the time it works out, right? And if it doesn't work out, at least I get taught a really good lesson at the end of it. And that kind of, as much as it may not look like that to other people, that's probably the most important part of the process. Is the understanding you get from taking chances. Playing it safe will never get you anywhere. You're going to be in the same place as you were 10 years ago if you're just playing it safe. And I've never in my life, kind of been a super safe. I like to push the limits. I like to push the capacity of people. I like to push the capacity of the company. And a lot of people here, a lot of my partners and employees and friends, they're like, slow down. And the beautiful part of this year was me internally getting to a place where I could say, hey, sometimes it's not necessarily just about going up, but it's about finding that sweet spot, right? What's the difference between becoming a $70 million company or being a $100 million company? It's really not that much. And if it's going to cause so much stress on your personal life, your personal relationships, the people in your business, you're overworking them, they're not enjoying coming to work anymore, that might not necessarily be the formula for a long-lasting situation.
That's right.
So balance, 2024, my focus has been on balance. And kind of knowing where you need people, right? And kind of realizing where you don't need people. I spoke to a guy, he owned a huge factory in Mexico. And he was talking about how his main foreman was a guy from over there, and kind of that individual's vision of big was how many people could he employ. It wasn't about the money. It was about how many people could he staff. And we had a long conversation about it, and there is a value in that, right? There is a strong value in that, especially when you're building something. You want to keep going. You kind of need as much energy as possible around that. But when you get to a certain point, you start to realize, maybe this one person is doing 3 people's jobs, and those other 2 people are kind of just sitting on their ass, right? And you have to kind of make certain decisions, because if you're going up, you got to create that balance, and there has to be kind of a law of diminishing, right? The law of diminishing is you can keep going, and then you might end up in the stars, right? Or you can kind of figure out what works, what's actually needed. Are there people that maybe we're not giving enough gratitude or appreciation to because they're covering multiple other people's situations, and they're kind of taking the rewards of someone else's hard work. So, like saying before, when you get up in the skybox, or you get up in the GM section, you start to see the game a little different. And I had an opportunity to kind of take a step back for a few months and kind of really watch the game from up there, and I made some really good decisions, I think, as a company that strengthened our foundation and protected the company. It's very important that I protect this. And I was having this conversation with somebody the other day. I said, I got 250 employees, right? If I get in the car and drive down the street and get in a car accident, I'm risking 250 people's lives, right?
Yeah.
Not saying it's any different than if someone who isn't responsible for 250 people to do something like that. But I have to think about those 250 people in every action I make in my life. Because if I don't, I'm jeopardizing all of their hard work, all of their energy, everything that they've put into this by kind of being selfish. So making sure you go out, take an Uber home. That's just what you got to do. You can't get behind the wheel. You can't make these decisions. You don't have the ability to take those chances anymore. And I didn't know where it was getting to as a company, because I'm still a younger guy. You start to realize you have to minimize your liabilities.
Yeah.
And you can't be so available for certain things and certain conversations, because as unfortunate as it is it's it's a dog world out here. I mean, I think I had somebody trying to pretend they were me so they could trademark the company the other day, and somebody called the office and was talking to Katie, and it's just like these things that you don't really think about start to occur when you get to a certain level. Like my dad said, when I was getting larger, he's like, you're going to be under the microscope, pretty soon. And everything you do is going to be monitored, watched, judged. And whenever anybody finds a weakness, they're going to try to exploit that weakness.
That's right.
Strengthening the armor, 2024, making sure that we minimize our liabilities and we, have a vision for moving forward. We opened a few new offices, North Carolina, Charlotte, and we got rid of a few offices. And the things that work, we're working. And the things that don't seem to work, you don't got to just keep something around for an ego reason, or to say I got 7 offices, because at the end of the day, it's a revenue-based system, right? You want to see how much money do I put in and how much can come out, right? So, that money could be spent in other areas. We've recently, invested a lot into outside marketing. We have billboards around, all the major expressways now around the city. We rebuilt our website with Spectra AI, SEO based system. We've, grown substantially when it comes to the amount that one individual salesperson is actually, closing and sealing in. I think this year we had over $23 million producers. So that's a nice bulk of our business comes from our core group. And that's really important when you have a business, right? Because if your business is all over the place, right, and you haven't really built that core group of individuals who can sustain the business, it becomes kind of scary. It becomes very fragile. And, I'm blessed to have these guys around, and their hard work doesn't go unnoticed. And, we recently just had our, every year we do a company Christmas party, and it's, something that I really take pride in. So this year was amazing. There'll be like some recap videos on our website or on social media. Everybody had a great time, and the camaraderie there was, next to none I've ever seen. I mean, it was very, what's the word I'm looking for? Very touching to me as a person, and something that you can kind of take a step back and say, damn, look what we built, so.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think you said a lot of things there that I'd love to kind of go a little bit deeper on. One of them was the concept that I feel like a lot of people don't treat their business as its own thing, as its own, like the reason it's an LLC or a C, right? Like it's its own entity for tax purposes, but we don't treat it as its own entity that we want to keep alive and thrive and help grow and feed and nourish and but when you get to that level, what I heard, and you could tell me if I'm off or not, but it sounds like when you started to have that realization that, man, this is something that is outside. It's not just Curtis anymore, or not that it was ever just Curtis it hasn't been just Curtis for a long time. You've had a great team for a long time, right? But it's beyond you and the team even. It's beyond that. It's its own, like it really has its own existence. And what I hear from you is that in that realization, or in that moment of those thought processes, that you started to understand or contemplate risk reduction.
Yeah.
Is that along those lines? And not just risk reduction in terms of, do we have the right liability policies, and who's going out to which job site and what's going on there? And, do we have, are we OSHA compliant for this or that? Like, not just that, but risk. You reduced the risk in your own personal life. Man, that's personal development right there. And I've been talking about this recently. I'm like, the entrepreneurial journey is like the epitome of a personal development journey, right? Yes. Like it's a crazy thing. So, risk reduction. I want to go back to the hiring of the labor force here in terms of that, because in the hiring of the labor force that you took on, man, you added a lot of liability. You added a lot, from an OSHA compliance standpoint. We were talking a little bit off camera about the things that you had to learn around foreign labor and all of these types of things. What were the biggest lessons that you learned that now you can kind of turn into risk reduction in the, as you move into this further?
I think it was there's a saying, I don't know the saying, but it's something like spend $1 to make a penny, or save $1 to make a penny, or something like that. When you look at things from a different perspective, you get to see them in a different light, right? So, the things that we've learned and that I've personally learned is that, like we were talking about before, personal development, stuff like that. Also, corporate development and how to keep your company safe. There's a lot of things out here now, and a lot of people and situations where people are looking for an easy come up, or for looking for a way to benefit from something that's that large now. And like we were talking about before, when you're a smaller company, your risk factor is a little lower when you go and put billboards on the side of the expressway, or when you do all these things. Now you become this target, kind of.
Yeah, there's a guy here in Minnesota, Curtis. His name is he's a realtor, and now his name just escaped me really fast, but he has so many billboards around town that there are Facebook hate groups about him.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's like finding that balance and kind of removing yourself from some of the decision-making factors of the company as well have been kind of healthy for the company, allowing people to really own their position and live and die with the decisions that they make has been something in 2024 where I've allowed to happen. I usually get involved and try to save things, and then eventually it ended up happening either way. So like I said before, taking a step back and allowing things to play out, and allowing kind of situations to either excel, and when they do excel, you put some gas on it, or to kind of drizzle out and don't give it resuscitation. If it's not working, let it die, right? If it's not, it's like holding on to something because you just want it personally, not so much that it's even beneficial, right? So, it's a up and down. It's a growth.
How many of those things were you holding on to?
A lot.
Going into last year, there was a lot of them.
There was a few.
Yeah.
There was a few. There's a few ego things too as a young man that you try to put into different categories, but a lot of it has to do with certain personal qualities about yourself. So I feel like as your company's growing, you should also be mentally maturing with your company, or it's going to outgrow you, right?
Yes.
And hopefully it does, right? Because you have the minds of 100 beautiful minds, and you only have yours. So sometimes when it does start to outgrow you, knowing when to take a step back, knowing when to seek the right help, knowing when to reach out to, like you were saying, like that other company, like the NBA, reaching out to people who kind of have been through these situations before and can help guide the company to whatever the finish line is that we're trying to get to. I heard earlier you said that you sold your company to, what was it? It was Job Nimbus?
Job Nimbus, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I doubt when you started it, that was like was that your vision when you started? Did you even think that it would go there or it would be there?
No, you just want some customers, right? Like you just need some customers. That's what you start out wanting, right?
Yeah.
Like you start out wanting some customers, wanting to pay your bills. That's what you start out wanting to do. It evolves, man.
Yeah.
One of the things that you said there was allowing people to live with the mistakes that were made in their and owning their roles is what I'm hearing, and not stepping in to save it. But what you also said is not stepping in to save it, because even a lot of times, even when you stepped in to stave it, things still went wrong, right? Like,
Yeah.
so, so that's my goodness, those are growth moments, right? To learn, like, wow, I can't, like, I may have the ability to step in. I want to step in because I want the best for the situation, whatever it is, but it may still end up going it may change direction a little bit, but it may still end up not being resolved in the way that we were hoping for.
Definitely.
What have been some of those lessons of helping people become those leaders that they need to be? Because because your team has to grow too, right? The difference between 25 million and 80 million, there's leadership there's leadership growth, not just in Curtis, I would assume, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How's the team grown? What have you done made any intentional efforts to help them grow? What are some of the things that you've been doing?
A lot of times, the people who have, kind of taken these leadership roles on, like we talked about before, started at the bottom, right? So they kind of went through each position in the company. I mean, like the guy who runs production now, he was in sales, he was in accounting, he was in supplementing. Now he's in production, right?
Yep.
He was something else 2 years ago. Last year, I think he was in a different position. So being able to have a full understanding of the thing allows that person to be so much more efficient and understanding, and he can understand, he can see the problem, and it may not be the problem that's in his face. May have been something that happened 3 months ago in a completely different department, and he knows how to fix it. He knows how to solve that problem without having to go and find somebody to solve the problem for him. So I think that just the evolution of a company, right? If you can get like 10 quality, capable people, eventually, and you keep them around and you kind of move them around and let them, grow and learn and go find things out and come back to you and say, hey, this is what I found out. This, if we do it this way, you say, there's things that you would never be able to find out unless you came from
That's right.
Supplementing department. Oh, we can get more money for this, and this is something we're doing on every job. Let me go let Amber and supplementing know this, because they know that we're not doing that, right?
Yeah.
So, the natural growth and evolution of a company is a beautiful thing. I mean, it was hard for me to hold back tears at the Christmas party just by watching something.
I think those are those moments when you're looking around the room and you see that, and you see the relationships that have been built. You see, like, there's a whole, it gives you a whole different perspective.
It does.
Right? Because you're not looking at the game that's being played. You're looking at, it's everyone's families, and it's everyone's everything, and everything together, man. I can imagine. I've never had 250 people, right? Like, I've never had a company with 250 people or led a company with 250 people. But my goodness, man, looking around the room must have been pretty cool. Tell me a moment. Like, tell me a moment about that. Like, when you saw, like, what were some of the moments where you were like a little choked up?
The camaraderie between the people there was really something that it's hard to even talk about. I mean, it's crazy.
Friendships, right? And if I remember right, you went, your whole time in business, you've really you've employed a lot of close friends, family members, things like that along the way. So that that must be something that's important to you.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And then just seeing people who have taken an opportunity and turned it into something that was beautiful in their life. You know, it's the most rewarding thing in the world to see somebody where they were 5 years ago, see where they are today, see where they're at today. And there was a situation. I think it was a Salesman of the Year. You know, they carried him in on a chair to the stage. You know? And it was just people were happy for him, genuinely happy for another person's success, and that's honestly what it's all about.
Yeah. How intentional was the creation of that culture? How much of that culture just came to be?
I would say majority of it was intentional.
Yeah.
You know, I never liked to structure was always difficult for me. Right? Normality was always difficult for me. To say you can only play this game this way was always difficult for me. You know, so I've tried to make it a point to kind of be more of an unorthodox style of company, younger company, kind of second chance type company, and I mean it worked out.
Yeah,
and kind of my greatest personal satisfaction is kind of being able to say that. You know, the worst thing in the world for somebody to say is "I told you so," but I'm going to say "I told you so." You know what I mean? And that's kind of where I get to smile. I don't have to say anything beyond that. You know, because I told you so. You know, third grade teacher or whoever, right? In life, sometimes you have to take those small battles.
You do.
You have to take some stuff personal to help you overcome it. Maybe show yourself. If you can't find it in yourself to want to do it for yourself, sometimes take those small battles in life. And by the time that battle's done, it won't be about that person anymore. It'll be about your self-development. And when you get there, you'll look back and say, man, I'm glad I kind of used that for something to accelerate my growth.
Yeah.
But it's not, the reasoning isn't the same anymore. So
that's right. It becomes unimportant, but it was a great source of fuel.
It was, exactly.
Right? But you get to use that fuel. That fuel burns out, right? Like after, you don't need that fuel forever, but a lot of those early, maybe early life things that happen to you, taking that and being like, this is, look at me now, like there's something to it. But then also in the ability to give someone else an opportunity and then being able to tell them, look at you now.
Yeah.
Right. Like
that's really what it's about. It's like, I mean, it's almost unreal. The story is almost unreal. It's just life.
There was a point in our business, Curtis, where I was talking to my business partner there was a point in our business where I was looking, I started saying the numbers, like we'd run through our numbers and they didn't sound real to me. Almost, right? Have you had that kind of experience? Like when you guys are talking about your revenue for the year, does it almost, to me, I felt more connected to the numbers when they were smaller. Like they meant a little more, right? And then as the numbers got bigger, I felt more disconnected from the enormity of it, right? Like and we didn't get to your size, but like it just, there was a point where I was like, it doesn't even make sense coming out of my mouth. Like when you're talking about, 80 million, what's that, monthly, and you know what I mean? Like, what are you doing? Like 6 million a month? Like that's crazy, right? Like, or from the beginnings, right? From the beginnings, it's like, to be like, you probably remember the year you hit 6 million or 5 million, right? Now you're doing Now you have months that are
we're not quite at 80 yet. We're
not to 80. Okay.
We're a little bit under that, but
still, like,
yeah.
what point did you have you had that? Did you ever get to a point where you're like, is this even like? I gotta pinch myself? Is this real life? Like, does this, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's a, you know, I look at it, and the thing about it is with more comes more.
That's right.
Responsibility comes more, bills comes more, liability comes more. So that was kind of, you know, it's. I mean, last week I think we brought in $1.5 million, right?
Yeah.
Which is awesome. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, it was the Christmas party week. It was my birthday. I'm like, it's, you know, it's all gone. It's all went to ABC and Beacon, and you know.
That's right. It does. You know, yeah, that's where it goes. But
at least I got to look at it for 5 minutes. Right? At least I got to look at it.
But yeah.
It's
a lot of people can't even imagine it, right? And that's where I think I want to expand people's horizons in that thought. Not to say like, oh my goodness, Curtis, you're crushing it. Like, it's that I think we like, it's unbelievable what people can do.
Yeah.
Like it really is. And for everyone listening, that's what I'm trying to get across here is that like it can like, and it depends on what you want. Right? It depends on what you want out of your business too, because you don't have to have a multiple 8-figure business, right? Like you can have a smaller business that's really profitable and, you know, you can have what you want, but it, you know, if you're someone that, you know, if you have the talent, use your talent, man. Like I don't know. I believe in that. I believe in.
You know what? It's really about, like we were talking about in the beginning. It's about when the people around you are hungry, when the people around you want more. It's hard to stop that growth. It's easier. It's easier to get there and get bigger than it is to even get smaller, because now their hunger for growth, and you've built these 20, 50, 100, 200 people. Now they all want to eat, and they all want more than they wanted last year. So just by human nature and by just the evolution of people, I mean, it's something that could just keep going, and maybe, you know, it gets to a point where, you know, certain people step out of the way. You know what I mean? And that's just the natural cycle of business as well. And
it is for sure.
You know, we don't have to get into that topic too much. We could probably do another one of these and say 6 months.
Yeah, that's right.
Have a completely different conversation.
What about the industry changes, man? Like, what are your thoughts on how the industry's changing, and then, you know, how you can best adapt to what's on your horizon? Because in entrepreneurship, one of the best things I've heard, or ways to describe it, is the wolf is always chasing you.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can't stop evolving. You can't stop moving. You can't stop doing. So what are some of the big changes that you see in the industry that you see may disrupt things, and how are you approaching them?
One of the biggest things that I've seen in this industry is private equity money coming in, right?
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to compete against a $7 billion private equity company that's going out and buying 65 companies, right?
Yeah.
I mean, get real with yourself, and let's not, you know, play the, the measuring competition, if you know, with something that's going to hit the ground. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like there is no, you know, that's something that I've seen a lot of. You know, even when you were talking earlier, you know, your company was purchased by something like that. Not saying that that's the whole industry, but
how do because we've had private equity in the space for years now. I'm sure they've bought in a few companies in the Chicagoland area, right?
A lot of them.
How have you seen what changes do they make in those companies? Is it like I've seen a lot of the private equity companies go really hard on marketing, like their budgets are much larger than yours. I promise.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly. It's like, we go back to sports. It's like, okay, the salary cap for,
that's right.
It's like the New York Knicks trying to play College of DuPage,
Yeah.
community college.
I've said it. I've said it a few times. It felt like over the years sometimes that the Minnesota Twins were like a farm club for the Yankees, right? Like as soon as a player would get good enough, they just pick them off with a higher salary, right? Like there's that kind of vibe around it. And not that the Twins are a professional team; they've won World Series, but it's still like it's so. So what other things are you seeing the private equity companies do that are encouraging to you and discouraging to you?
I haven't really seen a lot of discouraging, private equity deals or situations. I think that the owners of the companies, are making some good decisions and kind of knowing that you don't really know what you've built until someone values what you've built either.
Yeah.
Right? You could say, oh, I got this company, and until somebody kind of puts that stamp on you, you don't really understand what you've built. So I don't really have any personal opinions on it either way. I know that, for the growth and for the future of CNN construction, I know that eventually natural occurrences have to happen.
You're a target for them for sure. And I would assume, I mean, if you're in anywhere in this industry, revenue wise, that you're getting emails, phone calls, LinkedIn messages, whatever it is from people reaching out to have those conversations. But they are definitely targeting the companies who have made a name for themselves in an area, right? That's a prime target. And so how have you thought about that? How have you thought about those conversations? Is it a tough one? I mean, you've built a family and friends business, right? Like I feel like people that have done that have not a harder time, but it's like maybe it's not the intention, right? Like it's not, or maybe it's not the right thing, or you would have to make sure that it's the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I want to get back to one other thing. So you start a company, right? You're selling roofs, right? You're selling roofs to customers, and then you want to grow your company, and then you start selling the opportunity to other individuals, and then you get to that next level where now you're selling the opportunity, the product, and the function of the company. Now you're selling the brand. Now the brand is on billboards. Now you're selling a brand. You're not selling roofs anymore. The brand is what's selling the roofs. And eventually you get to the point where there's that next, thing that you start to think about, service industries right now are hot. You know what I mean?
It is.
And it's nice because, a lot of the blue collar type guys are kind of getting their due diligence. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's nice to see, that you don't have
to. It's nice to see. That's a good point, man. It's a good point that, a lot of people in the blue collar industry it's a testament to the industries that have evolved over time and the companies that have been built. Those private equity companies wouldn't be here if there wasn't something special in a lot of these companies. So that is really a good way to look at it, man. And there's a lot of people that deserve a good check at the end of it.
There is. And like the goal is to, I'm 38. I got hopefully a long life ahead of me. And just, for 2025, staying focused on our growth, staying focused on that, 20 to 30% yearly, growing, staying focused on, quality and craftsmanship, getting back to some of our core values, getting back to some of our things that made us great, like let's make America great again type situation. Let's get to those core. What are the things that separated us from everybody else? And let's get back to that, and let's get back to business. So 2020.
That has to be hard to manage as you scale, right? Especially when you get into, with the number of jobs you guys are doing per month kind of thing, right? Like to have the quality, and to have with the number of team members, for them all to be bought in on the core values and things like that. Like that's something that I'm sure could get off track easy.
Yeah. And everybody is a reflection of it as well. So it's like, and people have to kind of own that, and people have to understand that, like what you're doing is a reflection of the person sitting next to you. And the way you deal with that customer is not just a reflection of you anymore. Like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Another 70 sales guys standing next to you, and you just made their job harder. Or when you, get into it with an insurance adjuster and he's a POS or whatever. And now we got to go see him again.
That's right.
3 hours later that day.
That's right.
And now you got to deal with a guy who's like, get out of here. I think taking a step back, I'm glad that, winter's here and, gives the guys a little bit of time to kind of, just have a little bit of a break. This year's been crazy. We ended in January and started in February. So, and it never stops, but, people need, this is an intensive, mentally and physically intensive job. You're dealing with multiple personalities, multiple customers, up and down ladders, on hot roofs, on cold, sheets of ice on, it's like the most extreme situation that you could, get into. I always tell people, I say, I don't know if anyone ever grew up and said, I want to be a roofer when I get older.
No.
I want to.
It's amazing all the stories and all the conversations that I've had. We're pushing, getting close to 250 episodes now, and it's like the industry finds people.
Yeah.
You don't find it's like the industry finds you, and you can't get out. But you don't want to get out because you find your tribe, right? Like there's a lot of really good people in this industry, and a lot of really good people in your businesses, and it's really cool, man. That's awesome. Looking back, now that you've had a chance to for the growth over many years, right? You've had the growth over many years. You've had, we kind of started off. You talked about one of the things that you wanted. You mentioned you just want to leave a legacy, right? Like, now you've had your stopping points. You've gotten to step back. You've gotten to see the field from a different view. You got to see that amazing Christmas party with all the camaraderie and all the people. What is that legacy for Curtis?
The legacy is a lot to do with everyone else around, and just kind of some of the memories and the of course I could sit here and say I want to leave the largest roofing company in the country, but it's really about just being able to spend my life with the people that are around. I thoroughly enjoy the people in my company. Like, it's not a job for me to come to work or to, go through life standing next to a lot of these individuals. I choose them and they choose me, and that's the legacy.
That's awesome, man. Thanks for your time today. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. Thank you for tuning into the Roofing Success Podcast. For more valuable content, visit roofingsuccesspodcast.com. While there, check out our sponsors for exclusive offers, shop for merchandise, and sign up for our newsletter for industry updates and tips. Also, join the Roofing Success Facebook group to connect with other professionals and stay updated on the latest trends. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment. Your support helps us continue to bring you top industry insights. The website link is in the description. Thanks for listening.